Hello all my beanie weenies, this is of course Sims Hotdogs, and welcome back to my channel and for another exciting episode of The Sims 4 The Traitors. And it is our first morning waking up in the Traitors castle, and one of our Sims has been murdered. Our Traitors met in secret last night and decided which Sim they were going to kill. But so far we can see that Thorn, Arnessa, Ted, and Don are still alive and well. However, they are quickly joined by more alive Sims. So we have Grace, Eric, Gunther, and Eva. None of them have been murdered. It's also kind of interesting to see who they're deciding to stand and sit with, who's chatting. We see that Ted is all alone. Meanwhile, Eric and Thorn are seeming to have a good conversation. And things seem to get a little bit frisky between Grace and Dawn. And right in front of Eva, too. During this conversation with Grace, Don actually discovers that he likes discussing hobbies. Wow, thrilling, truly exciting stuff. And I kind of feel bad for Gunther here as well, because he was kind of sat in between the two of them and they just totally ignored him to the point where he ends up just getting up and sitting at the table with everyone else. And Grace and Dawn sit a little bit closer to each other on the couch. But it seems as though Dawn is a little bit stinky, so maybe Grace isn't as into him as it appears to be. However, we have more alive Sims entering the room as we see Sienna, Lily, Nancy, Ian, and Salem. Alright, so far we know 14 out of the 19 Sims remaining, but there's only 5 spots left, and it looks as though the pressure is already getting to Sienna. Except for Sienna, obviously, everyone else seems to be having a pretty good time. They're all kind of cheery and talking. However, Lily still seems to be very bored. But let's see if this livens Lily up as the final 5 Sims enter the breakfast room. We have Leah, Jeb, Jess, Megumi, and Naoki. Alright, it did take a little bit of time, but once I finally get all of our Sims to sit down at the table, it's time for me, Sims Hotdogs, to make my grand entrance into the room and deliver the unfortunate news that Mortimer Goth was the first Sim to be murdered. Why don't we take a look at last night at Mortimer receiving the news and how he died. Now, I am sad to see Mortimer go. I love having iconic Sims characters in my series, and everyone loves a goth. He is our 3rd goth to be here on the channel, and it sucks that he's the first one to go. But what do you guys think about Mortimer? Are you sad to see him go? Make sure you leave a comment down below. But unfortunately, he's not leaving peacefully, as our 3 traitors end up meeting him at the horse stable to give him the unfortunate news that he's being murdered.
Beru Scandus? Galna? Oh, Shunik.
Yibs.
And just like that, we go from 20 Sims down to 19. But that's not all, as tonight we are going to be having our first square table vote, where all of you will gather and vote out who you think is a traitor. And then we will reveal if they are innocent or if they are guilty. But until then, enjoy your potential final day here in the castle, mingle, talk to one another, strategize, and I'll see you guys tonight at the vote.
Blish? Hand
Wait,
Now, Sienna seems to be taking the death of Mortimer the hardest out of all of the Sims. And I don't know if it's because she liked Mortimer or just the simple fact that this game is stressful and you can be murdered at any moment, and she could be next if she's not voted out tonight. And one thing that really seems to be helping Sienna get over all of this, get through that grief, is the horse that we have here on property. Now, I built the stable just as like a space filler, but I do think it's kind of interesting to have a horse running around. But I will say that this series also made me discover how difficult that is and just how annoying the horses are in the game. But I am glad that we have a horse here in order to help Sienna, and she seems to be the only Sim really taking the horse and really showing it any kind of attention, so I'm glad that she is there. While most of our Sims are enjoying the castle and partying, Lily seems to be bored of everyone else, but she enjoys this time sitting outside, relaxing, and getting some nice TLC. But upstairs, the party still rages on in the bar. We see that Eric and Eva are doing a keg stand, while Jeb seems to be the bartender for the hour.
Noosh noosh.
Meanwhile, upstairs in the gaming lounge, we see that Megumi, Nancy, and Ted are enjoying a game of dominoes. I don't know why they couldn't include just dots and stuff like dominoes. I'm not too sure, but it looks interesting, I guess. Grace, however, seems to be taking this game pretty seriously, and in fact maybe a little too seriously, as she is in fact annoyed at how upset Sienna is over Mortimer's death. And you know, I kinda get it, like there's gonna be a lot more death in this game, and if this one's upsetting you that much, how is Sienna going to survive the next few weeks? And Grace just is not happy about that at all. She does not want to live around someone moping and sobbing, and she actually ends up kicking her out of the room. Meanwhile, it seems as though Gunther and Ian are now joining the game upstairs, and it seems to be causing a bit of a commotion. There seems to be a little bit of an audience forming, and I think it looks like a pretty good time. However, Sienna isn't the only one that's upset. In fact, Leah is actually crying in her bed upstairs, and I was surprised to see that. But after letting those tears out, Leah decides to grab a drink with Megumi and Naoki at the bar. Outside in front of the castle, we see that Thorn, Sienna, and Eva are having a nice little powwow. But it soon turns a little flirty between Eva and Thorn.
Nah. Yarpanoosh.
Haga, Rix.
Kimba.
Pooji.
After joking back and forth with Eva, you can definitely tell that Sienna is feeling a little bit better. But the casual flirting between Thorn and Eva soon gets heated up, as Thorn takes it a little bit more seriously and starts to get a little bit more touchy. And Sienna seems to be loving the view.
Dashimo, have a breath.
Oomph.
Demo. Oblish Kumli. Oh.
Urazap?
Avini.
Ah, Sunanibna.
Back upstairs in the bar, we see that Jess has replaced Jeb as being the bartender, but she's not as good. It's going to take a bit more practice. However, Megumi and Naoki have been having a lot of beverages, and the two of them are feeling not only a little bit tipsy, but also a little bit frisky. And as soon as the conversation gets boring, the two of them decide to sneak off to their own private bedroom for some alone time.
Arabe.
Queba. Oots.
Back in front of the castle, now that Sienna has left the conversation, things really start to heat up between Eva and Thorn.
Lurvy.
Oh, tell a Jim Whipsy.
And this is around the time when I started finding out how awkward and quirky it is to have a horse on the lot when they're not like completely fenced into a small area, because he really just finds himself sleeping and pooping everywhere. And the horse and Eric get a nice view of what seems to be Grace and Dom's first fight. Maybe this is where she's telling him that she's just not that into him and that he's a little stinky. Upset, Dom tries to blame the horse poop that's scattered everywhere, but it doesn't seem to be fooling Grace, as she goes ahead and sits next to Eric instead. Upstairs, however, Naoki and Megumi aren't the only ones getting freaky, as Gunther is spending some nice quality alone time by himself in the bedroom. Unfortunately, though, he does share that bedroom with 3 other people. Hopefully they don't come and intrude him. Meanwhile, in the bar, it seems as though Jeb has had a little bit too much to drink and has passed out. Jess, unfortunately, does have to use the bathroom and has left Thorn now alone and unable to get a drink because he's too famous to make his own. I will say one thing that I do find annoying about having this amount of Sims in a house is that they always need to use the bathroom at the same time. So they're constantly being flooded with multiple Sims, if not almost all 19 Sims, flooding to go use the bathrooms. And I only have about 6 toilets and it's still not enough. Meanwhile, the breakfast room is actually still pretty busy from this morning. We see that Lily tries to join in on the conversations, but Ian and Nancy just completely ignore her. But I'm glad to see that the two of them are at least bonding. They haven't really left the breakfast room and they've just been sitting there chatting, enjoying some tea. Meanwhile, we see that Arnessa, of course, is cleaning up around the house, while Ted seems to not think that breakfast was enough and starts cooking pizza for everyone. And while him and Eric talk, we see that Ted is not the only one cooking in the kitchen, as Sienna is whipping up some ice cream. And I gotta say, I'm pretty thankful for Eva, as she remembers the pizza in the oven after Ted just completely ignores it and starts talking to Eric. And she saves the day. I'm glad that did not catch fire. I don't want to have a fire every single episode. And I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way, as Nancy seems to be pretty annoyed at Ted for forgetting about the pizza. He could have burnt down the house, he could have injured all of them, and she is not too happy about his irresponsibility. But is it the best time to pick an argument just a couple hours before the first square table vote? I'm not too sure.
Lyre.
Fliffle.
Diola.
Bakira. Frost. Yeah.
Wibasu.
Rapiabosa.
Bristlex for Dean.
Oh. Embo.
Speaking of the square table vote, as the moon rises in the night sky, our Sims dress up and gather in the chamber for their first voting ceremony. Hello, my Sims, and welcome to your first voting ceremony. Tonight, each of you will vote for who you want to see leave the castle. Now, in the real show, the contestants would be voting for who the traitor is. However, in The Sims, it's kind of hard for our Sims to make that distinction, so instead, they will just be voting on who they dislike the most, and who they do not want to live with. Now we are going to start in the center of our table and work ourselves around clockwise, with Leah being the first one up to vote. So why don't we go ahead and check out Leah's relationship statuses and see who she is going to vote for. And Leah has voted for Nancy to leave the castle. Next up to vote is going to be Jeb. Let's go ahead and look at Jeb's relationship statuses. And Jeb has voted for Nancy as well, giving Nancy her second vote. Grace is next up to vote. And Grace has also voted for Nancy, giving Nancy her third vote. Eric is our next Sim to vote. And Eric has decided to spice it up a little bit and cast a vote for someone new, giving Jeb his first vote. Next up to vote is Thorn. And Thorn has decided to give Nancy her fourth vote. It is now Dawn's turn to vote. And Dawn has gone with the majority and has given Nancy her fifth vote. But with 19 votes, it could still turn around for Nancy. Let's see where Thea votes. Alright, I mean, maybe it's not turning around for Nancy right now, but it still could. But unfortunately, Nancy has 6 votes to leave the castle. Next up to vote is Gunther. And Gunther has given Nancy her 7th vote. Next up is Eva. Will she also vote for Nancy? And Eva is the one to put a third name up on the board with Lily, giving Lily her first vote to leave the castle. Our lazy sim, Salem, is next to vote. Salem seems to agree with Eva and has decided to give Lily her second vote. Are things turning around finally for Nancy? We'll have to see, as next up to vote is our Nessa. And just as things seem to be good for Nancy, Arnessa decides to hit her with another vote. Ian is next up to vote. And Ian shakes it up a little by giving Lily her third vote. Alright, now obviously Nancy is not too happy right now, and she can't vote for herself, so let's see who she decides to vote for. And I personally don't think it's the smartest game move, but Nancy has decided to give Arnessa her first vote to evict. Next up is our other Strangerville native, Ted. Let's see who his crazy ass votes for. And Ted has given another vote for Jeb, giving Jeb his second vote. Now Lily has 3 votes so far and is in second place behind Nancy. So let's see who she decides to vote for. And Lily has decided to vote for Jeb, giving him his third vote and tying him in second place with herself. Next up to vote is Sienna. And Sienna sadly votes for Nancy, giving Nancy her 9th vote. I love the contrast between sad Sienna and then we have Naoki over here who looks positively excited and happy to be voting. Let's see who he is so happy to be voting out of the castle. And Naoki drops the bombshell by adding another name onto the list and giving Eva her first vote. Next up is Jess, who is tweaking out just as hard as Ted is over there. Let's see who she decides to vote for. And apparently there can only be one tweaker in the house at a time, as Jess has actually decided to vote for her fellow Strangerville man, Ted. I don't know why she did that, honestly. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, he does have an attitude problem, but whatever. We are now down to our last vote, as Megumi is deciding who she is going to vote for. And Megumi seems to agree with her husband's decision and has given Eva her second vote. All right, all the votes are in. Ted and Arnessa received 1 vote. Eva, Lily, and Jeb received 3. But ultimately, with a whopping 9 votes to evict Nancy, you have been voted out of the Traitors' castle. Please stand in front of everyone and reveal if you are indeed a traitor or a faithful. And unfortunately, Nancy was indeed a faithful, which means that 2 faithfuls have now left the game. We are down to 18 Sims and 3 traitors. Who is going to be the next one to leave? We'll have to wait and find out. But that is the end of the road for Nancy and, of course, for Mortimer as well. But if you want to download these Sims at all, you can over on my page on the Sims 4 gallery, Hotdogs Sims. I did remake all of these townies, even though they are pretty similar to their normal versions. But whatever, I think mine are better. And of course, tell me what you think about Nancy being voted out of the castle down below. Are you sad to see Nancy go? I mean, we had 2 iconic Sims leaving the game so far, Mortimer and Nancy. I was definitely looking forward to seeing what they were going to bring to the table, but unfortunately they are now gone. And our Sims are now leaving the chamber to go head to the bedrooms and go straight to sleep, where tomorrow they will have to rise and shine and compete in a brand new challenge in order to earn safety and money. And of course, just like downloading those evicted Sims, if you want to download these Sims or even the Traitors Castle itself, again, check out my page over on the Sims 4 gallery, Hotdogs Sims. And I want to apologize again for the little break in between episodes. These uploads are going to be pretty irregular, and I do apologize for that, but thank you to all my beanie weenies for sticking in there with me and enjoying this series. I love seeing what you guys had to say about the premiere episode, and I can't wait to see what you think about the 2 Sims being eliminated from the game. But most importantly, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff. That way you are notified for when I upload a new episode. And I'm going to end it there. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.